Good morning. How are you today, Mark?
Okay. Let's start.
All right, time to get this show on the road. Happy Funday Sunday. To get started today, we're going to come to the center parts of our mat and bring our feet together, toes aligned straight forward. And we're going to draw our legs in together. I like to kind of straighten through them and then create an initial pull or push of them together. As you do so, I like you to hollow out your belly and then just hold on this for 1 second. And then I want you to feel those muscles actively working. So that squeeze, the length through the legs, and then the drawing into the belly. And then we're going to grow our spinal column. And as we do so, I'm going to ask you to pull your shoulders to your ears and then open the palms to face forward and then draw your elbows back ever so slightly behind you. So we have a nice posterior pull through the back of the body. We're going to grow the neck by pulling with the head. As we hold on this, I'm going to ask you again to squeeze the legs a little more. And while you hold that squeeze, I'd like you to draw your butt backwards. As we create that forward lean, I'd like you to keep the chest proud, drawing the elbows back, hollowing out the belly, making sure you've got a good engagement of that six-pack muscle. Take a big breath in, and as you exhale, stand tall and serve your arms up. Forearms come together, baby fingers touch. Take your thumbs and open them downwards as the palms tend to expand by pushing and widening through the fingers. Let the forearms separate slightly and take your elbows and push them together. And then let the forearms come back together. Keep the fingers spread as widely as you can. As you draw back the elbows, trace your ribs and pull those elbows all the way back and fold a little bit in just to the spot you were before. Make sure you're pushing from the heels and straightening those legs as best you can and engaging that six-pack muscle. We're going to try to deepen the fold a little bit by simply pulling your butt backwards, keeping the spine growing. Come back up, serve out the arms, spread the fingers widely. Really widen them so the tips of the baby fingers are touching. We create a little bit of separation through those forearms, serving out a little deeper, and then drawing back in, tracing, same thing, all the way back down, legs straight, heel weight bearing, mostly notice. And take a big breath in, and as you exhale, let the arms descend towards the earth as your fingertips arrive upon the mat. Keep your back in extension. Imagine the head pulling the spinal column long, rounding out the chest to get some activation of those posterior muscles of the back. Keeping the legs squeezing together, draw your hips back and give me a pronounced weight bearing into the heels. On your next breath, as you release it, let the upper body just fold down and relax. Whew. Float from side to side, and then circle around on your feet. And then find balance between front and back and left and right. And when you have that, inhale, extend to a flat back. And we're going to bend both knees. Now, as the knees push forward, I'd like you to keep the legs pulling together. So we have an internal muscles, the medial muscles, the inside muscles of those legs or thighs, squeezing and pulling together, and straighten the legs back up. Keep the legs pulling together as you bend the knees. Keep the legs pushing together as you push that rear end back up to the sky. Try to keep those legs straight. Draw back the hips and gain as much weight bearing back into those heels. Inhale, extend to a flat back. Keep the back in extension as both knees bend and thighs squeeze. Keep the thighs squeezing as you push your butt back up to the air. On your exhale, let that upper back just go into flexion and hang out. And float on those feet again. And find balance front to back and left to right side. As you inhale, extend to a flat back. As you exhale, squeeze those legs and bend the knees. And step your palms up and onto your thighs. Let's draw your shoulders backwards and make your chest nice and proud. As you inhale, stand tall, sweep your hands to the sky. And as you bring hands over heart, step your feet out to the edges of the mat. I'm going to just separate myself from Kirsten a little bit. Now, I'm going to take the heels, push them, step them onto the edge of the mat, and then step my toes so they hang into the midline of the mat. With this, I'm going to bring some straightness to the leg. With both legs straight, I'd like you to kind of push the hips to the left, come back center, and keeping both legs straight, we're going to push to the right side and alternate side to side slowly. Feel that nice pull, the tension kind of going down the side of the leg, up and into the side of your buttocks. Feel that nice release as we come back straight. Hold on this. And then I'm going to ask you to try to chopsticks the legs again. Just try to pull them into the center line. As you keep that initial and that inertia, that pull, I like you to pull back the hips, keep the legs straight. And as we work this stretch, I like to keep the upper body long, chest proud, shoulders pulling back. As we begin to fold and descend, keep that strong pull of the legs. Come back all the way up to standing. And push those arms up into the air, so the sun. Make sure we're not trying to drift back too far. We want the extension to this nice side body muscle. Your lats being pulled by the fingertips, making that nice and long. Let the shoulders push up or pull up with the hands. Take a big breath in as you exhale, lower those arms shoulder height. Keep them separate about shoulder width. Just take your toes and step them straight forward now. And as we descend our body into this squat, I'd like you to kind of do so with control. Now, when you come down, often we have a proclivity to wink in. I'd like you to try to keep extended, but engaged. So come down with that engagement and come all the way back up. So we're not forming any movement with that lower back. We have a nice, stable engagement of muscle through the whole range of motion as we come all the way up and lower down. The range of motion down will increase as these muscles become more vascularized with blood flow and more experienced with the movement pattern. So try to explore this range of motion as best you can today, but try not to wink, which is that pelvic flipping, if you will. So lowering down, raising up. The importance of maintaining a good stability through that pelvic girdle is it tends to mitigate any stress in that low back by actually using muscles that require hip flexion and extension as opposed to lumbar flexion and extension. That pelvic stability, very important for movement and also for stabilization. Okay, coming back up, arms to the sky. Inhale, exhale, fold down, have a seat. Oh, class is over. I'm just kidding, of course. All right. I got a little bit of respiratory thing going on, so I'm gonna grab some water. Cheers to everybody. I urge you to grab water if you need it, and whenever you need it, of course. Now, as we come to our seated position, the sit bones, those these bony protuberances of our pelvic girdle, we're going to kind of rock back so we're on the tailbone, which is basically my pelvic girdle rotating backwards, posterior. And we're going to rock forward, anterior, coming up and onto those sit bones. As we keep the sit bones connected, I'm going to bring my hands to kneecaps, and I'm going to create a proud chest. And as I keep the proud chest, I'm going to proud it out and lean back. So I have a little more engagement through those hip flexors. Good morning, sweetie.
Just gonna change the angle.
Oh, you're right. So Mark can see. Good idea. So we have this nice extended back. Yes, ma'am. As we keep that extended back, I'm going to bring flexion to the feet, and then I'm going to open the feet so they kind of angle away. And it's almost like a 90-degree angle would form at the vertice between the legs, even though we have them separated nice and widely. So we have this nice, open, engaged with a spinal column posture going on right now. I'm gonna pull my shoulders back to keep the chest proud. I'm gonna keep that activation through the shoulders as I take my right and left hand and step them forward, shoot them forward. Palms facing, fingers separated widely, shoulders pulling back, chest proud. And now I'm gonna elevate the arms just about eye level. And I'm gonna rotate in with my feet flexed so that the thighs come together, and then externally rotate. Internally and externally rotate. We're gonna practice this a few times, so take your own pace, slow, a little bit faster if you want. Most important part is when we pull together, you give me a little bit of squeeze. You hold for a second and then release. So in, out. See how far out you can go, and how far in is always determined by when those legs meet. So you can't go any further than an immovable object and an unstoppable force coming together, right? So hold together now as you keep that squeeze, squeeze a little harder, and then release, and then step the legs all the way up, come down onto your backside. Oh, good night. All right, so we have our feet extended, legs extended all the way out with our feet separated about hip width apart. And I'm just gonna rock on side to side and then get a nice comfortable position. Shoulder blades, we're gonna make sure we have a nice flat blade. So we haven't got an internal rotation on the shoulders. They're sitting kind of flat on the blades in the back as we bring the hands above the chest. Palms are facing. Nice. Now, both heels, I'd like you to push away from your hips. And then I'd like you to draw your belly button into your spine. Keeping the hands extending up, making sure that the shoulders aren't lifting up off the earth. We just have this nice straight arm. And we're going to take those straight arms of ours and keep them straight as we drift back just to the point where you can see the upper arm in the peripheral view of your eye. So we have them elevated up off the floor. And then we're going to bring all the way back and lower the arms all the way down so that the baby fingertips touch, because we have our fingers separated nice and widely. And then I'm going to ask you to proud out the chest, engage the six pack, and then slowly have those arms ascend all the way back up and then descend backwards to the peripheral view. So we're just moving and mobilizing through the shoulder joint with a neutral arm. It's all engaged. We have the shoulder blades working actively. We're going to add a progression to this, which is I'm going to ask you to kind of engage your gluteals. So I want you to kind of squeeze those muscles as you draw in your belly button. You're going to keep the motion of the arms nice, slowly working between the down position on one side and the down position on the other, the not so down position, the peripheral vision view on the other side. All right, now, relax everything, step your feet in, keep your hands reaching up to the sky, and we're gonna rock the pelvic girdle. So right now I'm starting up on my tailbone, which means my low back and my low back skin, that's the sensation, is elevated up off the floor. And I'm gonna rock posteriorly and bring my low back skin down onto the earth as best I can, as close as I can. It may not go there for everyone, but just enough effort to kind of make that happen. And as I arrive at the spot that's best, that's achievable for me today, I'm going to ask you to engage your six-pack muscle. And while you keep that active, we're going to take the back of the head up off the floor, drop the chin into the chest, and begin to peel up as we reach up with the hands. Peel up each and every vertebrae that can, so we have a crunch going on. And then I'm going to slowly imprint each vertebrae all the way back down to the back of the head, alights gently on our floor or mat. And then we're going to do that again. So we're just practicing some abdominal six-pack muscle, if you will, activation and extension. So we come up, we're reaching directly up or as high up as we can, as opposed to across. We're not going diagonal, we're trying to go straight up if we can, and we're gonna continue to oscillate between the up and down view or point here a few more times, getting some nice blood flow and severe activation. This probably feel some heat building in those six-pack muscles, which is great. Keeping that motion up. We're gonna hold up this time, try to reach a little higher and then relax it all the way down. Extend the legs straight, bring the arms above the head, extending all the way back. Forget the peripheral view, just pull as long as you can the arms, point the toes and use those toes to pull the legs long and feel that nice lengthening through the whole front of the body. Fingertips to toe tips. Take a big inhale, and as you exhale, sweep the arms back, come all the way back up to seated position. I'm gonna wrap my kneecaps as I spread my feet. Mat width apart, I'm gonna bring flexion to the feet. So there's a 90-degree bend in those knees, and I got a nice proud chest. I'm gonna rock back and then rock up onto the sit bones. I'm gonna keep those sit bones active as I take my hands and release, and this time bring forward and together and interlock. As we interlock the fingers, I'm gonna ask you to draw the shoulders back. And we're gonna lower those knuckles of ours down onto the mat. And you're gonna feel a nice, what feels like normal type of pull, which is our normal inclination to round forward, right? So now we're gonna bring this back up. And now we're gonna work on the correction. So we're gonna release the hands and draw the shoulders back. Pull forward, interlock, lower down, get that feeling to pull. It's not a desirable feeling, that's kind of a normal feeling, but we want to change that. Separate, pull back, push forward, interlock, lower, and you got it. So now we have this exercise where we're working in retraction of the shoulder blades, lowering down, raising up, opening up, drawing back, pulling forward, and lowering down. And we're creating some sliding action of these muscles that help the shoulder blades relocate backwards right now. Pulling, pushing, lowering, raising, and open, and hold back, and Pilates style, cave in, lower, imprint, vertebrae by vertebrae, all the way down, and then bring those arms all the way back as you step the legs out, point the toes, and pull from opposite ends, fingertips and toes. Pulling through that center line of the body, right through the belly button, if you will. And as you take your next breath and release it, bring the hands back up and Pilates style, come all the way up. And then dive the hands between the feet as you let spinal flexion become familiar. Fill your lungs and blow it out. Bring flexion to the toes, to the feet, and also to the toes. We're gonna wrap the tops of the feet with the palms of our hands, if it's accessible. And then we're gonna use the palms to pull the toes towards the shins. As we do so, we're gonna inhale and extend to a flat back. Crowding out the chest. Making sure we're not compressing through that neck of ours, keeping that area, that region nice and relaxed. Try to pull back a little deeper. You can feel that nice tension through the bottom of the feet and maybe up and into the lower part of the legs, all the way up into the knees in some cases. We're going to hold here for another breath. And as you release it, we're going to take the legs and sweep them all the way back. There they go, all the way back. We're coming onto all fours. On our quadruped position, I'd like you to take the knees just slightly wider of the hips. The same thing with hands and shoulders, hands slightly wider, and then we're going to basically push up and away. So when we have this up and away push, there's a little arch through the back. We're going to accentuate that by taking our pubis and kind of tucking it under. So we use the same kind of method to kind of get our low back skin on the mat when we're lying down. So we have that same internal activation of our six-pack muscle, kind of drawing up and in the hips. And there's a lot of flexion through our thoracic spine. Now we're going to kind of work the corrective behavior here, which is letting the chest drop in between the arms. We're going to make sure the elbows are spiraling into the center line. And while the chest drops, we're going to flip the tailbone and pull the back of the head high to the sky. And the only thing we're really missing here at this point is the engagement of our transverse abdomen. So I'd like you to try to pull the belly up and into the spine. If you feel tension in the gut, you got it. That's what we're looking for. Now I'm going to keep that tension as we reverse what we just did, tucking under the hips, letting the head descend, bringing flexion to the spine, keeping that belly nice and hollow. And while we work to keep the belly hollow, we're going to reverse. So keep that pull up and in as we flip the tailbone and pull the back of the head, almost like you're being lifted by a belt right through your belly, holding on to that and reversing. Holding on to that while we come back to the double extension, head and tailbone opening to the sky, and then neutralizing this, keeping that spinal column nice and stable and mobile of sorts. And as we tuck the toes under, we're going to elevate the knees. And then we're going to lower back down. You're going to take the right hand, lift it off the earth, left hand, lift it off the earth. As we reseat the hands, we're going to re-engage and lift the knees back up off the earth and then lower back down. This is just a slight lift. Hand, opposite hand, and both knees simultaneously. And continue to walk through this pattern slowly. So it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, and continue on your own 4 count. As we make this progress over time, the experience of the activation of this core subsystem, which is basically a series of muscles that help keep that core active. This is really a good practice for engaging those muscles. So if you feel like your pelvic stabilization is always becoming nominal, which happens when we age and we sit for long periods of time, this is a great corrective exercise for that. All right, now hold it down, take your feet, flip them so the tops of your feet are now on the mat. As you step your knees out to the edges of the mat, angle your big toes in towards each other. It's okay if they touch. I'd like you to kind of slowly drift back the hips and keep the hands. We have like a upward posture of sorts. So my upper body is like a 45-degree angle, and I have flat palms on the earth, arms are straight. I'm just enjoying a nice stretch for the shins. And if I feel pressure in the knees, I can always add cushioning or not sink my hips as deep. This is all about a nice opening for our quadriceps. And in some cases, we have issues with joints. This helps to kind of relieve the pull that these shortened muscles often have on the tendons of these joints to the hips and also the knees. So it's a great stretch for that. Come back up, flip your toes back under, lift those knees back up off the earth and pull the hips up and back to down dog. Drive the heels towards the earth, get them down on the earth if you can. Don't worry if you can't. Take the arms, push long through the upper body. While your heels are working to drive to the earth, you're straightening out those legs of yours as best you can, right? Just checking. Now, while you keep that all active, imagine I've tied a little string onto the tailbone of your body. And I'm going to pull that string to the sky. And if you felt an intensification of the muscles on the back of the legs, you're kind of connected with what we try to do there. And if you didn't feel it, work for it. All right, now let's drift back, walk out to your plank, and hold that high plank, and then slowly lower down onto the mat. Keep the shoulders and hands in the same position. Hands are by the shoulders, of course, and are a little wider than the width of the shoulders. We're going to keep the nose as our kind of harbinger of height. So knowing that we're not letting the face run into the earth, we have that nice elevation, which is really an activation of the muscles of the neck, using those muscles to hold the head up off the earth. I'm going to ask you now to take your hands and lift them up off the earth. And then I'm gonna ask you, imagine there's a string, one on each shoulder, pulling the shoulders to the sky. And then lower down to the palms release, and then use those strings and pull up the shoulders. And then lower and raise a few more times at your pace. Try to accentuate the holding up of the shoulders. And again, if this is a tension forming experience for the neck, I'd like you to focus the lengthening through the neck as opposed to the compression thereof. Growing the neck as the shoulders pull high to the sky. Let's do this one more time. And as you lower the hands, use those arms now to push your chest up off the earth and drift backwards into your child's pose. Find your version of it, enjoy it. For me, what I always like to do is walk my hands forward. As I pull my hips backwards, it's more of an active or a working child pose, but allows me to kind of create nice length through my lats. Give them a nice length. Take some of the tension that builds up during the day. And then as I walk my hands back into my quadruped, all four position, I have my toes tucked under, and I'm gonna let my head just drop down slowly. I'm gonna enjoy it, and I'll basically turn it from side to side, letting gravity find nice length through it. Now, for a lot of us, this probably feels very normal, like, oh, this feels good. And it's kind of not really the best or most ideal for posture. So now I'm gonna kind of work the corrective thing by using the arms and straightening them out. I'm gonna push the shoulders so the shoulders are sitting forward. They're kind of in the undesirable position, internally rotated. But while we keep that internal rotation, I'm gonna ask you to take the neck and make it long. And then while we keep the neck pulling long, I'm gonna ask you to spiral your elbows in towards the midline and then purposely lower the chest down in between the arms. We have the neck pulling long, chest long, and now your posture should be almost picture perfect if you were standing, but we're not, we're facing the earth. So we're gonna hold on this and then take a big breath in, and as you exhale it, let's step the hands in towards the body, put them on your thighs, keep that chest nice and proud. You notice my elbows are not forward, they're pulling back, creating that opening opportunity through the chest. Just a gentle or light touch of palms on thighs. Now I'm going to draw the hips backwards. They're still elevated off my heels. We haven't sank down. We have a nice pull back, chest proud. And I'm going to hold, holding this while we pull an imaginary spring for the head. I'm going to draw the chin in, but I'm imagining my whole head is being lifted. So we have that nice pull through that neck region, keeping that chest proud. I'm going to fold in a little more without toppling forward, of course, to maintain that balance. Levering or counter levering over the hips, making sure we're not too far forward or back, finding that balance between front and back, holding on this. And while we hold on this, we're going to change the weight bearing equation by taking the left hand and reaching it forward, and then switching for the right. So the arm is extending straight. We're not bending the elbow and then straightening the arm later. Just push down, extend the arm straight, sweep the arm up, lower back down, bend the elbow. Opposite hand, push the fingers to the earth, sweep the arm up, and then alternate from side to side. So this is bilateral work, and our rotator muscles of the spinal column are now being exercised as we create a disparity on one side versus the other, keeping stable. So it's important not to have the shoulders sweeping from side to side. We have nice square shoulders. As we make a few more efforts here, you might feel the tension of the low back muscles. That's all good. Those have to become stronger. Now, both hands back down, all the way onto the mat. And we're going to cat and cow this a little bit. You do your versions. And then we're going to add in Sean's version of this. So we're going to let the head fall. We're going to bring an imaginary spring to the center part of the thoracic or upper spine. And we're going to pull it to the sky
And while we've created that activation of head dropping, spine middle pulling to the sky, we're gonna drift the hips backwards towards the heels. And you're gonna feel a nice tension, pulling of sorts, down and into the thoracolumbar. It's my fancy word of the day, but that lower back area. And then we're gonna drift forward and then straighten it all up. Flipping the tailbone to the sky, pulling the back of the head to the sky. Hollowing out the belly, feeling that nice tension in our gut area. Now keep the tension, let the head descend. Center of spine string pulls, hips drift backwards to the heels. If you can increase the range or depth of the movement by lowering the hips a little closer to those heels, feel free to do so. And come back with flexion, set up onto all fours, and tailbone and back of head with the belly engaged. Pull high to the sky. And then next time back through, pull it back. And then drive your heels into the earth and pull up into down dog. How's that for transition? Oh. Now walk your hands back towards your feet. Find balance between front and back and then left and right. And keep that balance, that experience on the bottoms of your feet as you inhale and extend to a flat back. You're gonna bend both knees and then stand tall, sweeping your arms up to the sky. There's a beautiful face.
Have to change the camera.
We've lost Sean's head. All right. All right.
Is it good now?
Yeah, I got it. You can't see my bald spot. You're gonna need to turn it up a little more.
Up higher?
Sorry, our camera person's struggling today. There we go. All right, so Mark's all got his arms up. He's ready for the next set of exercises. That's great. We're gonna bring our feet to the edges of the mats and turn our toes in ever so slightly. As you draw down the hands now over hearts, we're gonna work on some three planar type movement. So as we make this move, I'd like you to slowly go through this, and this is not a speed-based move. So we're gonna slow down. Now I'm gonna draw the hips back. We're gonna let the knees push into each other. Hands are gonna remain over heart. As we stand tall, we're gonna take our left foot, we're gonna post the toes straight. Take the right foot, step it back to form a roughly 90-degree angle, and with enough space where I can actually lower down, you'll notice that my knees are pushing forward over the toes as I come down into this squat. And as I stand up, I'm using the heels as the leverage point. I'm kind of pushing down using the friction of the mat to create that nice extension to the legs. And then I'm going to step forward, toes aiming straight forward this time, and step that opposite foot back. Same setup, opposite side, lowering down. And you will notice that if you go about this slowly, it's going to cue muscles to create the movement and create that stable movement factor that we all desire in our movements. Lowering down is all relative to what's available in your range of motion package today. Find what works best for you. Explore a little bit if it feels okay to do so. And alternate side to side, your pace, nice and slowly though. One of the things I'd like you to practice when you make the transition is when you rise up, plant into that forward foot and sweep the other one around slowly. Lower down, slowly, rise up. I'm on my left side, so I'm planting to that left foot as I step the right one around. You get the story, right?
Mhm.
Continue. Few more repetitions. Oh, who thought this could be so much work? Got a little bit of cardio then going on here. Now, step it straight forward. Hold on this very important for bilateral stabilization to do rotational exercises. I try to do as many as possible. Anyways, hope you enjoyed that. Hands are still over heart. Now, I have got my feet hip width apart, toes hanging straight forward. Gonna come down into a squat, and then we're gonna play around with forward and back movements. Now, as we do this, I urge you to be mindful of balance, right? So we don't want to fall forward or backwards. So I like to kind of push forward with the knees, pull back with the hips, and rock forward to back. And as you do so, I like you to try to lower the hips down as you go through this experience, forward and back. Working a little bit of mobility for these hips and ankles, and then come back up slowly, forward and back, threading forward and back, coming back down, forward and back. Changes the orientation of major muscle use between the quads and the gluteals. Shifting forward and back. Hamstrings, yeah. You'll notice difference between forward and back. What's loading in terms of muscles coming down. Shifting forward and back all the way. Have I said it often enough?
Mhm.
All right, come back up. Nice work for those legs. Keeping hands over heart. Step your feet in, hip width apart. Gonna step your toes out to the sides of the mat. So we've got like a little V going on with the feet. And then we're gonna make sure we have a hip width apart step between the heels. As we lower down, the knees are gonna push forward. You're gonna get a nice stretch through those calf muscles of yours, keeping nice and tall as you come all the way down and all the way up. So your range of motion is that. So winking, that's when the hips flip in or out. I want you to avoid winking as you lower down and get this nice depth that's able to be achieved by you today. And one little nuance here. So as we lower down, anything you want. When you raise up, I like you to push the heels into the earth as we create the upward push. Try this a couple more times. Try not to fold in on this. Try to keep nice and vertical. It's a much different experience and much different muscle activation if the body's more upright. And this is my last time down, pushing with the heels, rising up. That was a great exercise. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Let's take it down to the mat. I'm gonna grab some water. Oh boy,
Is the camera?
camera angle is pretty good. I'm gonna come back so I'm visible. There we go. So, as we lie down, I'm gonna ask you to take your feet and step them in. I've lost a little bit of camera angle. Sorry, speaking how? And I'm not talking a lot, just talking like an inch or two. So there's just a slight bend. Most important, we've done this exercise a few thousand times. 2001 now. To start this off today though, we're gonna bring our fingers behind the head and you're gonna take your thumbs and gently massage just behind the ear space. So you have a nice little neutral, which is the formation of the back of the skull, right by the neck where it kind of forms in. There's a bunch of loose space there. I like you to just kind of massage with your thumbs, pushing from the bony area into the soft area so slightly, just enough to kind of massage out all of those muscles of the back of the head, down into the neck if you want to take it down there. And now that we've kind of been working on these muscles area, this area, which is really a stimulus for the parasympathetic system, and just give you that little bit of massage on these. It might feel good because this is what we're really trying to trigger. Now, while you've got that all triggered, like you just relax the thumbs, keep the head, cushioned by your fingertips that are, of course, interlocked. And we have the elbows open as wide as we can. So our shoulders have a nice exterior rotation, or the best version of it that we can give right now. So I have my
feet in the same spot, I'm gonna turn my thighs into touch, and I'm gonna do the same thing with my toes. And as my toes work to each other to keep that connection, I'm gonna flex both feet. So I want them flexing as intensely as you can towards the shin. Now, I'm a little working on these, I'm working a little on my thigh squeeze. So I've had a big squeeze. I can feel those inner thigh muscles trembling with the effort of that squeeze that I'm initiating. And equally important to this is the flexion of the feet. So I'm really kind of triggering those inner thigh muscles when I stabilize or neutralize, I guess, the other lower leg muscles. I want you to keep the focus to get that tremble going on, hold that tremble, and then relax everything. And then using your heels as hinges, keep the same bend in the knee and just open up the legs. And then rotate them back in. And do a couple more exterior and interior rotations of the legs before we join them back together again and begin to squeeze the thighs, flex the feet, keep the thighs squeezing together, and then try to push the heels into the earth and elevate your butt up off the earth. It's a different experience, but important to this whole experience is the squeeze of your thighs. Give as much as you can. Hold and push, and then relax, and then external and internal rotation for a couple repetitions. And we're going to do this exercise one more time. This is great training for those inner thigh muscles, which of course, as you sit and you see your legs splay open, it's because those muscles are long and we want to shorten them up and strengthen them up. So as we begin this, squeeze thighs, flex feet, elevate hips. It's easy as I can make it, but it's hard, right? Work this, hold it, squeeze it, lift it, lower it, extend the legs out, take the hands above the head, sweep those arms forward, come up Pilates style, and dive between your legs. Oh, how good does that feel? As you come back up to the seated position, we're going to do some stretches. We're going to start with the seated figure 4. You just find your nice spot. Some people have different ability to bring that foot closer to the leg, whatever your ability is today. Without using your hand, I'd like you to kind of take I have my left leg forward, your right leg. I'd like you to try to rotate the leg down towards the earth. Now, if it's up here, that's fine. You can help with leverage a little bit with the arms to find that experience. Very important, though, is the anchoring of the foot. So I want you to bring flexion to the foot and then use the outside of that foot as a hinge point for the opening. As you push down into it, you're going to keep that foot connected to the earth. And if you have the ability right now, so if you can keep the leg down, we're going to just basically bring the hands out in front. We're going to go through some hip flexion because we're lowering the upper body towards the legs. And we're going to feel a nice pull, more so on one side than the other. I'd like you to kind of balance out the pull by walking the right hand forward. If you've got the left leg, it's the opposite hand, in this case, the right hand, walking forward. And then continue to open as best you can using the muscles of the outside leg of that right side, in my case, to lower it towards the earth and then walk forward with the hand just a little bit more. And then walk it back in. Switch up sides. Again, depending on where you are, you can leverage flexion, opening, holding, making sure you're not rocking off the pelvic girdle. If you're able to lower all the way down, enjoy that experience. You could also use the leverage of the upper body, pushing into that leg to create a little more opening as your left hand can remain on that thigh. I'm walking my left and right. As I go into deeper flexion, I'm going to take my left hand and walk it more forward.
And then I'm gonna walk it back in. And come back into a position where I'm gonna bring both my feet, the bottoms there up together. I'm wrapping my hands around the ankles. Right now, I'm demonstrating what inward rotation looks like in the upper body. I'm gonna pull up onto my sit bones, something we practiced earlier. I'm gonna retract the shoulders as I crowd out my chest. I'm gonna use my arms to pull forward the body as I grow the spine and pull with my head towards the sky. And then I'm gonna basically take my legs and try to open them towards the earth, keeping everything else nice and long, tension free through the neck, of course, and enjoying this nice modified staff pose. So I'm assisting with some pull, crowding up the chest, holding on this for a couple more breaths. And as I release this, I'm gonna step my legs forward, feet aiming up to the sky. Separate the toes nice and widely. One final stretch before we sign off. I'm gonna take my hands, wrap them, straighten the legs, pushing out with the heels, pulling with the arms, crowding through the chest, feeling that nice pull along the back side of those legs, up and into the knees, and enjoying the nice proud chest as I lower a little closer to the legs. And keeping tension free through the necks. All of these reminders very important to the experience. As we come back up to a seated position, I'm going to bring my hands over heart and say thanks for joining us today. I hope it was a great experience for you.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Okay.
Oh.